Yo, we step up in the scene, check your engine is clean. DPF Guys got your ride smoking green. No block, no drag, just pure machine. Come show us your truck, we'll make it pristine. We just wanna know, can your diesel uphold? Bring something dirty, we'll turn it to gold. It's like this, we clean up your flow. Now your engine is gliding. It's time to hit the road.
Oh man, good. That's some high quality H2O. So welcome to DPF Guys Live episode 62. Tonight's show is all about cutting through the noise around emissions because let's face it, fleets are getting pulled in every direction right now. But before I get into that, let me ask you something. Are you being pushed towards electric trucks that don't make sense for your routes, your budget, or your shop? Are you burning more fuel just to get through the regens and wondering why your emissions are going up and not down? So today we're going to get into how renewable diesel is outperforming electric trucks in real-world carbon reduction, why DPF maintenance is the key to fewer regens and lower emissions, how quality 1-micron filtration and clean air fleet additives can dramatically cut soot as well as CO2, and how your fleet can track emissions, reduce downtime, and tap into real funding opportunities without getting buried in too much red tape, maybe a little. So if you run diesel, manage a fleet, or want to just stay ahead of what's coming, this episode is for you. No hype, no spin, just real answers that keep your trucks earning and your emissions in check. So let's get into it. All right, question number one. Oh, hold on. I'm out of practice. It's been a week. Question number one. What are the most effective maintenance practices to reduce fleet emissions? So if you want to cut emissions, you don't need to reinvent the wheel. You just need to stay on top of what works. The best emission systems in the world won't help you if your basic maintenance is falling behind. So here's what really makes a big difference. Simple stuff, simple stuff. Air filters matter. If your engine can't breathe, it runs rich, burns dirtier, and makes more soot. A clean air filter keeps your combustion, allows you to stay efficient. Keeps helps your combustion combust and stay efficient, and your emissions stay low. Fuel quality is a big deal. Diesel fuel is not as clean as most people think or hope it is. If you're running a bulk tank, you should be filtering down to 1 micron right at the pump. Or if you're buying fuel at a truck stop, use on-truck 1 micron filtration to catch anything that slips through. With modern high-pressure common rail systems, even microscopic or almost microscopic dirt can flow through your fuel system, throw off injector performance, leading to pure atomization, incomplete combustion, and heavy soot, and even more CO2 output. Fix your leaks. Exhaust leaks before the DOC and DPF can cause false sensor readings, cause regen failures, cause your engine to improperly mix fuel and air, causing inefficiency and additional emissions. Crankcase breathers, oil leaks, and coolant from a cracked EGR cooler, big no-nos, can also poison the after-treatment system and just generally cause chaos in your engine. Stay on top of your valve adjustments. This is really an important one. It's easy to forget. Poorly adjusted valves can cause low compression from improper valve lash, and that can lead to incomplete burn. And this is especially important on your Detroit DD15s, your Cummins X15s, and OEMs recommend adjustments every 500,000 miles or sooner if you're having regen or soot issues. Also, using your additive like Clean Air Fleet spinning around behind me, because that will raise cetane, help your fuel burn more efficiently, demulsify the water, get the water out of the fuel where it doesn't belong, reduce soot, and protect your fuel system from wear and injector damage. So if you want to lower emissions, it starts with disciplined maintenance and not just waiting for your regen light to come on. Makes sense to me. Question number two. Now we're getting into electric trucks. And the question being, is electrification, meaning going with electric trucks, really the only path to lower emissions for fleets? And believe it or not, kind of contrary to the hype, no, electric electric trucks are not the only path, and that's kind of a myth, and it needs to be addressed. Electrification might dominate the headlines and be the clickbait and be on the news and so on and so forth. But when you really look at electric trucks and real world numbers, believe it or not, renewable diesel, or RD, can often deliver a greater reduction in emissions without the cost, complexity, or downtime. So here's the reality. So according to the American Transport Research Institution, or the ATRI, renewable diesel reduces life cycle of the truck, the CO2 emissions for the life cycle of the truck, by over 67%, almost 70%. And that includes not just the CO2 or the emissions of the truck itself, that includes everything to do with the fuel, which is production, transportation, and tailpipe emissions right at the truck. Battery electric trucks, on the other hand, typically deliver, they will reduce your CO2, but when you factor in everything, it only reduces your carbon emissions by about 30, maybe 37%, 40% at the most. And when you factor in, everything, like even how the electricity is generated and everything else, and of course the production of the batteries and everything, and this doesn't even include the environmental impact of disposing of those batteries, and we haven't really even figured that out yet. I'm sure some smart person will. Maybe DPF guys will be recycling electric batteries, batteries from electric trucks at some point in the future. Who knows? But let's be honest. Electric trucks come with major infrastructure needs, long charging times, and higher upfront costs. And it's just simply not feasible or realistic for many fleets today. Going back to RD, or renewable diesel, you can pour it right into your tank and you're ready to go. No special training, no charging stations, no permit delays. And keep in mind that CO2 isn't the whole picture. Let's talk about other emissions: particulate matter, unburned hydrocarbons, NOx. And this is where fuel additives like Clean Air Fleet can help you become even more efficient. Because even with renewable diesel, an additive like Clean Air Fleet can still significantly reduce soot, clean up the combustion process, and help your DPF and DOC last longer with fewer regens. Also, keep your fuel system healthier. Your injectors will last longer. Your fuel pump will have fewer failures, etc., etc. It's all good stuff. So are electric trucks the only path? No. For many fleets, it's not even the best path, especially if you want results now, like today, versus 10 or 15 or 20 years from now. If you want to start having a positive impact in the environment, run RD and wait for the electric trucks to catch up if they ever do. Question number 3. Oh, by the way, let me just quick check here. Oh, cool. We got one from America. We actually, what I was going to say is, if you're watching this on YouTube, which I do recommend you do, subscribe to our YouTube channel, like, follow, share, all the stuff that a YouTuber needs to say. And if you're watching us Facebook, YouTube, whatever it is, live, or if you're catching this after it's been recorded, don't be shy. Drop me a question. I just got one from a friend of the show, American Irons. And Mr. Iron says, please confirm there is not any difference between red dye and number 2 diesel from an emissions standpoint. And the answer is there is no difference. And the reason that that red dye diesel or off-road diesel is dyed red is simply due to road tax. Red dye diesel is exactly the same as just regular old diesel. But there's no tax on it, which is why they put the red dye in it. That way, of course, if you can use it in a tractor or something that's off-road, perfectly fine, generator, etc. But the minute you put that in your truck, you're skirting around the road taxes, and all it takes is for somebody to dunk a little tester strip in your fuel, and if it comes up red, somebody is going to spank you for that. So, great question. No difference between the two, except for the fact that you will get fined and get in trouble for putting off-road diesel in your on-road truck, and that's why they market. That's why they make it red. So thank you for your question. That is awesome. Anybody else have a question? Just shoot it in here. I'll check every so often, and and we'll see what's going on from there. Um, oh, this is a great one. AI. Um, so the question is, what role does artificial intelligence play in reducing fleet emissions? I just got back, just yesterday, I got back from Louisville. I was at the Mid America Truck Show. It was a great show. I talked to a bunch of different vendors. I had a chance to sit down and stand up actually and talk to Mother Trucka from YouTube. Super sweetheart of a guy. Really, I love his channel and encourage you to watch him already if you don't. But there were a couple of, this year there's probably 3 or 4 AI driven companies at the show. I would be willing to bet that next year for Mid America Truck Show, there'll be 2 or 3 times that, and probably the year after that, they'll probably have an entire area of the show dedicated to AI or artificial intelligence. So, what role does AI play in reducing fleet emissions? So, um, and AI, believe it or not, even though it is really being hyped every which way, it is it's here to stay, and it's not just some Silicon Valley gimmick. AI is already helping fleets run cleaner, safer, and more efficiently, and it's only getting better. I mean, this is AI technology is literally minutes old. A year, 2 years. I mean, it's literally, uh, it's. I mean, it's amazing how this has changed the world so quickly, and I can only imagine what comes next. Um, so here's what AI is doing right now to reduce emissions and improve operations. Smarter routing, that's a big deal. AI powered dispatch systems optimize routes based on real time traffic, terrain, vehicle load, etc. This means less idle time, fewer detours, and better fuel economy. Driver behavior monitoring, I know that's kind of an ugly thing, um, but systems can detect harsh acceleration, braking, speeding, extended idling, then alert the fleet and coach the driver. I'm like, hey, do you want to do something a little different maybe next time? And cleaner driving habits equals lower emissions, better safety, fewer insurance claims, fewer complaints to the switchboard going, this driver did something really stupid. They may not even be aware of it. And so if you can actually have the AI catch it and kind of maybe remind them to do something a little bit differently, um, and keep in mind that while there are definitely the super truckers out there that have been doing this for many many years, um, there are people getting into this that are new, and the more we can help coach them and guide them as they learn their skills, even more so every day on the road, it's not a bad thing. Another thing AI can be really good about is just maintenance, predictive maintenance. So instead of waiting for a fault code, AI platforms can analyze patterns in engine performance, and believe it or not, can actually predict failures before they happen. That keeps emissions equipment operating efficiently, and hopefully, the goal is to avoid costly breakdowns and downtime. Um, Tools like Hey Bubba AI, what a great name, are now streamlining dispatch, driver communication, task management, and even safety alerts. Less paperwork and confusion means more uptime and less wasted fuel sitting around waiting for the next load. I actually met with the developers, the owner of the Hey Bubba AI. Super interesting guy. He actually started out in trucking and telematics and has now embraced AI. I'm not sure where that will go, but the plan is to potentially um, help augment dispatch, or even allow drivers to dispatch themselves, having an AI assistant saying like, "Hey, I'm done here. I'm kind of in the mood to haul a load near home, and I'd like to be able to make at least $2.50 a mile." And the AI will just go out and do it. And in theory, could even contact the brokers and negotiate and everything else. Um, it may sound too good to be true, and it may have a little ways to go, but man, I tell you what, in just a matter of weeks or months, this stuff will be reality, believe it or not. Looking ahead, AI will play a much bigger role in fleet safety, maintenance, planning, driver support. Ideally, we'll see it increase driver productivity and income without increasing stress. At least I hope it won't increase stress. Time will tell. Bottom line, AI isn't here to replace people. It's here to take the friction out of the job. And when that happens, fleets run cleaner and more profitably. Now we just need to find an AI that will get the rates where they need to be. Let's see about that. All right, anything else come in here? Nope. What do we got here? Question number 4. This is a good one. Are there ways to lower a fleet's carbon footprint without switching to electric trucks? Now, we kind of touched on this on a previous question, but I get asked this a lot. And, some of this is more kind of theory and opinion, but I believe I'm fairly close to being accurate here. And the answer to, is there a way to lower a fleet's carbon footprint without switching to electric trucks? Absolutely. And most of them don't include scrapping your current fleet and waiting for EV infrastructure that's still many years away from being practical in the heavy-duty industry. But first, what is carbon footprint anyway, and does a carbon footprint require orthopedic shoes? So, not quite. Your carbon footprint is the total amount of carbon dioxide or CO2 your truck or fleet emits, mostly through fuel consumption, or fuel combustion consumption. And so here's the part that's going to blow your friggin' mind. So 1 gallon of diesel in your truck holds a couple hundred gallons. 1 gallon of diesel weighs about 7 pounds. I don't know what it is in kilograms, 3 kilograms, or whatever it might, 3.2 kilograms, 7 pounds, 7 freedom units. And when you burn that 7 pounds of diesel, are you sitting down? You pump out 22 pounds of CO2. That doesn't seem right. It seems like if you burn something, there should be less of it left, not more, right? So how the heck does this happen? Because combustion, in order to combust, you have to break down that diesel molecule, which is a big, slinky of carbon atoms. And under heat, it will, oxygen will bond with those carbon atoms. So 1 carbon atom actually nabs 2 oxygen atoms. So that's the carbon, the C, plus 2 oxygen atoms. That's 2CO2, creates CO2. And the CO2, which is heavier due to it grabbing on like this to the 2 extra oxygen atoms when it burns. So the exhaust that comes out, the CO2 that comes out, is invisible and odorless. It's just, you're like, well, it can't be there. Well, it is. Stacking up every mile. And unlike soot, which you can actually see, that CO2 is pumping in the atmosphere. You just don't have any awareness of it. So there is a way to lower your carbon footprint without going electric. And the big thing is, if you run renewable diesel or RD, it can reduce the life cycle CO2 for any truck or any fleet by 60 to 75%. It's a big deal. And using, of course, even if you burn, regular hydrocarbon diesel, fossil diesel versus renewable diesel made out of recycled cooking oil and things like that, you use a clean air fleet, use an additive like Clean Air Fleet right back here to improve combustion and cut down on other pollutants like particulate matter and unburned fuel. Also, dial back your idle time, improve routing, and stay on top of maintenance. Now, understand that if you are an over-the-road driver and you need to sleep in your truck, I always tell people your comfort and your safety is more important than your fuel economy or anything else. So, by all means, your truck needs to be cool in the summer, warm in the winter. You need to be able to, fire up that laptop or TV and, amuse yourself and cook yourself some dinner. So you need to idle for that. But ideally, you want to look at running an APU if you can. An APU will reduce your fuel consumption substantially. In fact, so much so that putting a brand new APU on your truck isn't cheap. It's going to cost you 13 grand, 13, 15, 11, it's going to cost you 10 to 15,000 bucks to put an APU on. But if you're living in your truck for any amount of time and taking your downtime in the truck, sleeping in your truck, etc., that APU, even if it's 10 or 15,000 bucks, will literally pay for itself in less than a year, usually. And that's in the savings of fuel. It's a big, big difference in fuel, savings in wear and tear and maintenance on your engine, DPF cleaning, etc. Another big important thing to reduce your emissions is keep your DPF and after treatment system clean, which is what DPF Guys does. That way your engine isn't playing tug of war of itself every single mile. It's not about waiting for the perfect solution when it comes to reducing emissions and CO2 output and everything else. It's about doing the right thing and the smart thing now instead of waiting for electric trucks to be available some point in the future. Now, remember, it's not just that, you can buy an electric truck today, but then you got to charge it. You got to have mechanics to know how to work on it. You have to have the right electric infrastructure to your lot, et cetera, et cetera. There's a lot that goes into this, no pun intended. But you can reduce your carbon footprint and your emissions today in a pretty simply, actually. If you run renewable diesel or run regular diesel, but then use your additives and fuel filtration, everything like that, you can clean your trucks up pretty easily without having to change a single thing, except for some additive, some filtration, a little bit of maintenance. All right, what's question number 5? Speaking of maintenance, how does regular DPF maintenance impact emissions and vehicle performance? So, contrary to popular belief, your DPF is not the enemy. It's your emissions filter. And when your DPF is clogged, your engine isn't breathing right. That means it burns more fuel, loses power, and starts generating more emissions, especially CO2. So how does this all work? A dirty DPF, back pressure builds up. A plugged DPF forces your engine to work harder just to push out the exhaust. It's almost like having a tailpipe not a tailpipe in your potato, a potato in your tailpipe. That means more fuel burned to do the same work, and more fuel equals more CO2 per mile. Also, regens, both passive and active, get excessive. A clogged filter means more regen cycles. And here's the kicker. Regens are pure waste. Every gallon burned during a regen creates 22 pounds of CO2 unnecessarily. And that's emissions. It's also wear and tear. And you're just burning fuel for nothing. And that's no good. Also, when your DPF and your emission system is dirty, the risk for damage or further damage of your upstream system, your turbo, your engine, your EGR cooler, et cetera, the risk of damage begins to climb. Overfueling and regen heat do put stress on turbos, EGR coolers, and injectors. It all adds up fast. Your engine will run worse. Power drops, fuel economy suffers, and eventually you're looking at a derate and or a tow. And again, nothing worse where you're 60 miles away from dropping your load and you derate, and now there you sit. You got to call dispatch, and it's just a bad day. So what do we do about it, and how is DPF Guys different? So as we've talked about, we just don't blast and bake. We want to get that filter to like new or as close to like new condition as humanly possible. So we start with a precise weight down to the gram. And by the way, a gram is about the weight of a paperclip. So we weigh all of the filters and catalysts right down to the nearest gram. That's all carefully documented. We run a comprehensive flow test for baseline performance. And there's inches of water column, or how hard do you have to suck the air through this thing to get it to flow. Once that's done and all documented and stored for future reference, for your records, for your fleet, we use a precision air knife with a strong vacuum, and we reverse flow everything out to remove loose soot and ash. This is the first step, not the only step. Then the filter goes into a high volume, pure water aqueous flush, followed up by more compressed air to remove any of that stubborn stuff stuck in there. And a lot of it is, can be tiny particles of ash embedded in the DPF. And then we go through our patented 10 to 12 hour baking cycle, slow, controlled, safe for the substrate. And then after that, we slowly cool everything down safely. And the filter, guess what? It's not done yet. It goes back through the air knife vacuum system for a final cleaning. And we do monitor all of this. We have cameras that watch this, so we can make sure that every single one of those tiny honeycomb cells is clean and flowing properly. By the way, a typical DPF will have 200 honeycomb cells per square inch. meaning that there are literally thousands of those little holes for soot and ash to hide in, and we make sure we get every single bit of that out of every single hiding place in that DPF. But we're still not done. We finish once it's done being cleaned and baked and flushed and etc. We finish with another flow test, an exact weight measurement, and that's to confirm that the filter has been fully restored, flowing like new, and ready to go back to work and stay back to work as long as possible. People often ask, how often do I need to get my DPF cleaned? People in our industry that make a living cleaning these things might tell you every 150,000 miles. Now, cleaning your DPF every 150,000 miles will definitely avoid any potential issues and won't hurt anything, but it kind of varies by truck a little bit. So I often tell people, or they'll say, how often do you need to get this done? And I'll say, well, how many miles are on your truck right now, and when's the last time your DPF cleaned? If they say, well, we've got, I've got 400,000 miles on my truck, and it didn't start, asking for a regen or giving me some sort of DPF codes up until recently, I tell them that as long as your engine is healthy and nothing goes wrong upstream with injectors or turbo or anything like that, you should be able to go another 400,000 miles. Or if you use the Clean Air Fleet additive, instead of going 400,000 miles, you might be able to go to 500,000, maybe 600,000 miles. So basically, if we clean your filter, it's going to be like new or as close to like new as it possibly can. So there's a lot more room in it for additional emissions, soot, ash, etc. And so as long as your engine stays healthy, once we clean a filter for you, it should be able to stay on that engine for the same number of miles and hours you had on before. And then if you start using Clean Air Fleet, which is right behind me here, you can even go further. So that's how you reduce emissions, protect your engine, reduce unexpected downtime, and keep your trucks earning money, which is really all you care about, besides all the other stuff. But I mean, that's, you're in the trucking business, and if your truck's not trucking, you're not in business. All right, what do we have next? I'm gonna quick see if anybody left me any questions. We got one here. This is a good one. So I wonder, how does fuel economy affect DPF life? 8 mile per gallon versus 4 miles per gallon. So if I understand you correctly, you may be unless you got this backwards, like how does a DPF affect fuel economy? But boy, you could really go either way on this, because if you have a truck that's designed to run at 8 miles per gallon, the DPF will be designed for that specific engine. It'll be sized for that. And a truck that's supposed to get around 8 miles per gallon, that's getting around 8 miles per gallon, will usually be able to run that DPF for 200,000, 300,000, 400,000 miles. I always tell people, think about getting your DPF cleaned at 200,000, which means, once you hit, once you go from, 200,000, once you get to 200,000, you're like, oh, I should probably get my DPF cleaned. And it doesn't mean you have to do it that instant, but try to get it done before you hit 250 or 300. But if you have a truck that is designed to, deliver 4 miles per gallon, it will have an emission system that's designed to handle a 4 mile per gallon engine. It'll be bigger and have more capacity on it. So in theory, and in my experience, is a large engine or a specific use case where it's designed to be 4 miles per gallon, then you will have a much larger emission system that is able to handle the resulting soot from only going, getting 4 miles per gallon versus the other. Now, let me qualify this by saying, if you have an 8 mile per gallon truck that is, or vehicle or off-road piece of equipment, whatever it is, and then you're suddenly, hauling much heavier, or the conditions are different, and so that engine is laboring that much harder and burning that much more fuel, that would mean that that same engine that was just, going for, 2, 3, 400,000 miles between DPF cleanings when it was doing 8 miles per gallon. And if suddenly you're working that truck really hard and it's only getting 4 miles per gallon, it's burning more fuel for the same distance, which means you're producing more emissions, more soot. You're probably using, you're wearing your oil out. You're burning more oil, and a lot of the ash in your DPF actually comes from the oil, not so much the fuel. And especially if you run the 1 micron filtration for your fuel, the solids that would be in the diesel fuel that would produce ash aren't there. And the same thing would apply to your oil. If you ran 1 micron bypass filtration from our friends at Clean Air Fleet, you'd produce less ash and less emissions for your DPF. So if there's two entirely different vehicles, one designed to give you 4 miles per gallon and one designed to give you 8, they would then have emission systems sized appropriately for either, and they should go about the same. But if you have one truck that gets you 8 miles per gallon because you're hauling a specific, a lighter weight, and you're not really working that thing hard, but you've got the twin truck that it's hauling, flatbeds full of coils or heavy haul or whatever it might be. You got a bunch of extra axles on this thing, and that thing is working, only giving you 4 miles per gallon. When it's, sister truck can give you 8 miles per gallon. You're burning more fuel, you're burning more oil, you're going to be producing more soot, and that will in turn reduce the lifespan of the DPF. As far as, and by lifespan, I mean the amount of times you have to get it cleaned. You'll have to get it cleaned more frequently than a truck that works lighter. I hope that makes sense. If not, leave me a comment and let me know, and I can clarify. But thanks for the question, man. I really appreciate it. Anybody else has a question, even if you're watching this after it's been recorded, just leave the question down in the comments, and I will definitely get to it. And I obviously don't know everything, but how I learn is when you ask me something I don't know, I will research it and find out and get back to you. Number 6. Let's see. What have I got here? Well, that's not right. Well, they don't match up for some reason. This one says, what are the benefits of sustainable fleet management practices? And my number 6 here. Okay, I'm going to hide that one. Let's talk about the actual question I have in my teleprompter. Is renewable diesel better than electric trucks for emissions? And the answer is, in many real-world cases, the answer is actually yes, believe it or not. Renewable diesel, or RD, isn't just good enough. It's outperforming electric trucks right now, especially when you factor in the full life cycle of both options. And I think actually but what do I got here? So once you factor in power plant emissions, battery manufacturing, grid losses, and infrastructure, if you switched your fleet over to electric right now, if you could just snap your fingers, boom, and get all electric trucks, you will reduce your emissions by 30 to 37%, your CO2 emissions. And that's counting making the power, making the batteries, making the truck, and all the electric infrastructure and everything else. So honestly, if you want to quickly reduce your carbon footprint, switch to renewable diesel, and you can use it with the same trucks, just get a much lower CO2 or carbon footprint. So if your goal is carbon reduction today, not 10 or 15 years from now, renewable diesel is delivering more results with less disruption. And guess what renewable diesel does not require? No new charging infrastructure, no driver retraining, no specialized shop tools, no government rebates or tax gymnastics just to make financial sense of a very expensive truck. You just fuel up and you roll. And here's the kicker: renewable diesel plus a high quality additive like Clean Air Fleet, which I might have mentioned once or twice before, doesn't just reduce CO2, it also cuts particulate matter, soot, ash, etc., unburned hydrocarbons, which again is more soot. It cuts regeneration and maintenance downtime. That's a cleaner burn, less soot in your DPF, and healthier emissions all around. So Electric trucks have their place, but in your typical fleet running 24/7 under load in every kind of weather, renewable diesel is a low drama, high impact way to slash emissions without missing a beat or slowing down. All right. Number 7. How can connected vehicle data help cut CO2 emissions? So, uh, very simple. If you're not paying attention to your fleet's data, you're leaving money and carbon and maintenance, etc., on the table. Connected vehicle platforms don't just track location anymore. They give you insight on how your trucks are running, how your drivers are operating, and where the inefficiencies are hiding. So here's what you can do. You can remotely track idle in real time, know exactly when and where fuel is being wasted. Every hour of idle time adds up. Every gallon of burned diesel equals 22 pounds of CO2 and 0 productivity, because if your truck is idling, it's not making money. It's just sitting there. Also, you can look for driving behavior, harsh acceleration, braking, speeding, and that'll all spike fuel usage. And telematics shows you exactly which drivers are costing you the most in fuel and emissions, and you can talk to them and help them adjust their driving habits. Also, of course, route optimizations, because these systems can reroute trucks in real time based on traffic, terrain, and load. Fewer miles driven, fewer miles per gallon, better miles per gallon, lower carbon footprint. But here's where it really gets interesting, is monitoring engine health. You can track coolant temps, boost pressure, exhaust back pressure, regen frequency from a central location or even just your smartphone. Subtle changes in passive versus active regens can point to problems before they become breakdowns, and that's a huge advantage for keeping your after-treatment system healthy and your emissions low. Diagnostic alerts and trend tracking. You can flag performance issue across your fleets from end to end, coast to coast, long before they trigger a single fault code. So you want a better running fleet, there's literally an app for that. And if you don't know where to start, guess what? We can help you find the right one for your trucks, for your budget, and your company's goal. Smarter trucks, cleaner burning fuel, lower emissions, less maintenance, less downtime. What's not to like with that? Because that is how you win the game in trucking. All right, what else we got here? What's the challenges and benefits? What are the challenges and benefits of electric heavy-duty trucks? So electric trucks look cool, sound great. They make the headlines and have 0 tailpipe emissions. That's, quiet operations. They're quiet. They've got a lot of torque. There's some interesting things they do in the cab, from a cab design and driver comfort, etc. And the truth is, for short haul and yard trucks, the spotters, the yard dogs, whatever, yeah, I mean, they might make sense. But when you step into the real world of heavy duty freight, the gaps get obvious fast. So here's the reality. One is in your pocketbook. Again, electric trucks are not as available, so you're waiting much longer to get your electric trucks. There is a sticker shock effect here. An electric Class A truck can easily run over $400,000. And that's before you buy chargers and upgrade your sites and wait for months for the utility company to green light a electrification project for your lot. Range and weight. When you think about how far you can go on a couple of full fuel tanks on a regular diesel truck, with a electric truck, you're going to get 100 to 250 miles per charge. And cold weather, or as the battery ages, or with heavy loads, it'll be even less than the stated distance you can go. And those batteries aren't light. Now, actually, batteries are super heavy, but you kind of have to factor in, even if the batteries weigh twice as much as an engine and transmission, twice as much or more. A battery powered truck won't have an engine, won't have a transmission. And so it ultimately ends up that the battery actually does weigh more, but it's only about 1/3 more than an engine and transmission and brakes and everything else. But every pound of battery is one less pound of payroll, and you're giving up payload, or not payroll. I say payroll. 1 pound of battery is 1 pound less of payload. So that, that's money, right? Or you'd have to have more trucks on the road to make up for the reduction in haul capacity of any electric truck. The thing that people don't think of is just the sheer amount of energy that's in a gallon of diesel. A gallon of fossil fuel is literally the most energy dense power source on the planet other than nuclear. So when you look at an electric truck, if you've got a typical, it's getting big fleet, let's say 100 trucks, guess what? That demands 25 megawatts or million watts of electricity. So that's roughly a fleet of 100 trucks would require roughly the same power as an entire small US city. We're not talking about a house or a block, or we're talking about a 100 trucks would require the electric capacity of a small city. So most fleet yards simply aren't built for that, and utility upgrades take a lot of time, permits, money, etc. And then simple shop readiness. You might have, people that know the diesel, the diesel power system, and know diesel trucks inside and out. It's not hard to keep your techs up to date with a little bit of training here and there, but you bring in electric trucks, it's a whole new animal. It's like going from having a stable with horses to having diesel trucks. So shop readiness is a big deal. High voltage systems need specialized technicians, electrical engineers instead of mechanics. And your diesel mechanic just can't figure it out like they do right now. That means more downtime, more cost, more training. So that's electrical trucks on one side, but now compare that to a truck powered by renewable diesel. Renewable diesel is just drop in ready. Use it with the trucks you already have. Start using renewable diesel. You're going to reduce your CO2 reduction by over the lifestyle of the truck you're going to reduce it by 67%. And that's better than most electric trucks when you factor in all of the other things that lead up to the truck itself. You're like, yeah, that's great. My electric truck doesn't produce any emissions, but everything that got that truck on the road and keeps it on the road produces plenty of emissions. And the real fun part is if you take renewable diesel and pair it with the Clean Air Fleet additive, you maximize combustion efficiency, raise your cetane even further, even though RD is a good cetane level to start with. You're going to reduce soot even further. Renewable diesel is a fairly low soot fuel, but you use Clean Air Fleet, you'll have even less soot. Fewer regens, longer emission system life, cleaner operation without touching anything in your infrastructure other than the source of the fuel. No overhauling your fleet or your fueling system. So you look at this when it comes to electrification, it's not really an either or. It's about what works now, today. And renewable diesel is out there right now, plus the Clean Air Fleet additive. Or if you don't have easy access to the Clean Air or to renewable diesel, which not many people at this point, there's more and more out there, but it's not as readily available. But if you even use regular diesel, you use the 1 micron filtration to make sure it's as pure as possible, and then you run the Clean Air Fleet additive. And you either add the additive right at the truck itself. There's even some intelligence that will dose the fuel right on the truck, or make it really easy and buy the Clean Air Fleet by the barrel or the tote, and use the automated dosing system to add the additive automatically, so that every truck in your fleet immediately is properly dosed with the Clean Air Fleet additive, and life is good. So renewable diesel plus Clean Air Fleet, it's a smart move for fleets that want to really, really, pursue a low carbon footprint, and you want results without all of the cost and drama, headache, and sleepless nights that you can get with electric vehicles. I'm going to check here. All right, what do we have? Number 9? Hold on a second here. The oh darn it, I don't know why these are not matching. Hold on a second here. So how can fleets track their emissions and carbon output accurately? So you can't reduce what you don't measure. When it comes to emissions, guessing is expensive. If your fleet wants to cut carbon, qualify for fuel credits, or just prove you're running cleaner, you need real and actual data. And believe it or not, you probably already have access to most of it. So simply track your fuel, and then use the kind of the 3x, which is just a real back of the napkin. So every gallon of diesel you burn creates about 22 pounds of carbon dioxide. Multiply that across your fleet, and the emissions add up fast. Tracking fuel use per truck, per route, per driver gives you a baseline for your carbon footprint. Use a fleet management platform. The usual suspects of, Geotab, Verizon Connect, Samsara, there's a number of other really good ones too, all pull data in from your trucks in real time. Fuel usage, idle time, engine performance, GPS coordinates, even how often your emission system does a regen can all be monitored and reported on. Document your fuel type. If you're running renewable diesel, your supplier can provide something called a carbon intensity score, or CIS. Basically how much less CO2 was produced compared to regular diesel. Hold on a second, something's playing back here. I don't know what's going on. Anyway, so you can see how much CO2 was produced compared to regular diesel. And that's important if your state offers clean fuel credits or emissions compliance programs. Watch your regen frequency. Too many active regens simply equals poor combustion, and tools like Clean Air Fleet Additive can reduce soot, improve combustion, and lower your regen count. And that means it's not just fuel savings, it's a real emissions improvement you can actually track. And if you want to really get serious about your emissions, start by measuring what you're burning and how often. There's a platform for every fleet size and budget, and we can help you find one that fits. All right, number 10, let's see. Where am I at here? What kind of incentives or funding are available for emissions reduction efforts? And there is money out there, but you have to know where to look, and you have to speak the language. A lot of fleets miss out on tens of thousands of dollars because they assume all incentives are only for electric vehicles, which is not true. So here's what's on the table. You have federal and state grants, programs like the Diesel Emission Reduction Acts, or DARA, and the EPA Clean School Bus Program, for those of you that run buses, offer funding for cleaner technologies, including renewable diesel, filtration upgrades, and engine retrofits. Now, as an aside, I don't recommend retrofitting DPF systems and emissions on old school buses, because it just seems to be a maintenance headache, but that's become less and less of an issue as most of those older buses are off the road now. But that's just my kind of old guy input on that. Another incentive is the low carbon fuel standards, or LCFS. So if you operate in states like California or Oregon, using renewable diesel can earn your company actual carbon credits that can be sold and have actual dollar value by simply using a cleaner fuel that will make your fleet run more reliably. And those carbon credits, guess what? They can be sold or traded to offset your fuel costs. There's some utility company and regional programs. Some utilities will fund partial site upgrades to EV charging if you do want to use some electric trucks. And some of them will subsidize alternate fuel infrastructure. Other offers grants just for data tracking. So don't change anything, just track your data, or get grants to better, to have better tracking of your fleet and win that way. But here's the key. You actually don't need incentives to do the right thing, do the smart thing. Switching to renewable diesel and using Clean Air Fleet will improve your emissions, cut your maintenance, and save fuel starting today, not 15 years from today. And you don't need to go with your hand out for some government assistance. If anybody needs any assistance, we're happy to help your fleet. Look into local programs or connect you with suppliers who understand the incentive landscape. But you don't have to wait for a grant to run a cleaner fleet. Sometimes the best incentive is just less downtime, better performance, and guess what? More money in your pocket. All right, I'm going to go check. We're almost done here. I'm going to quick check to see what we got for any other questions here. It looks like those of you who are watching must be satisfied with my answers because I haven't gotten any follow-up stuff. So it looks like that is a wrap for episode 62. Thanks for watching. Make sure that you mash that subscribe button wherever you might be. Give me a thumbs up and a like and a follow anywhere else you might be. Much appreciated. So what did we talk about tonight? We broke down why renewable diesel plus clean air fleet. And if you want to learn more about clean air fleet, get ready to screenshot this number. Here it comes. Give us a text or call at 404-999-1361. I'll give you a minute to screenshot that baby. 404-999-1361. And feel free to call us anytime, day or night, 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. If you call us right now, you'll actually talk to our AI, which we actually are getting into AI here a little bit, trying some stuff out. Her name is Lynn Diesel, and she is there to help you. And we will get your number and give you a real human. We'll give you a call back the next day. So renewable diesel, clean air fleet, smart move for fleets that want to reduce carbon output today without overhauling their equipment, their infrastructure, or their sanity. We talked about how connected vehicle data can help track emissions and prevent breakdowns before they happen. And we looked at the true cost of regeneration and the power demands of electric trucks, which are like, oh my God, you know, you want to electrify 100 truck fleet, you're going to have the power supply of a small city to do it. Also talked about how to keep your DPF clean so your engine runs efficiently and your emissions stay low. Bottom line, you don't have to wait for electric vehicles, money from the government, or miracles to run a cleaner fleet. You just have to make smarter fuel choices, stay on top of maintenance, and measure what matters. So if this episode made you think, if you're curious, you want to talk to us, send us a message or give us a call at 404-999-1361. Give us a call or a text at 404-999-1361. And check out dpfguys.com if you're ready to get your filters flowing like new or just want to help figure out your next best step. We'll see you next Sunday at 7 p.m. Eastern. And until then, keep your filters clean and those wheels turning. Thanks for watching, and we will see you again soon.
Haze, just clear skies ahead with DPF Guys. Your exhaust game's on tread. We got the tools, the skills, the might to get your truck rolling clean into the night. Throttle up, feel that clean airflow. Our service so slick, your ride seals the show. DPF Guys, we got the fit so fine. Hit the road with confidence. Now the world's your shrine. Bring in that rig, let's get on track. Breathe easy with no sooty black.